has the endgame begun for Vijay Mallya, with the Ministry of External Affairs now formally initiating the deportation process by writing to the British High Commission in India? The former liquor baron, who's said to be in London, has already informed the Supreme Court that he feels his return to India will be meaningless in the current context because he fears he's going to be thrown behind bars as soon as he lands in the country. But with the Indian government finally setting the ball for deportation in motion, Mallya may be left with no other option. But how easy is this deportation likely to be? Our colleague Zaka Jacob joins us now with the details. Zaka, is this the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Vijay Mallya?
So the MEA today is saying that they've made the formal request to start deportation proceedings against Vijay Mallya. Now, what is interesting is they've written to the British High Commission here in Delhi, initiating this process. Subsequently, the Indian High Commission in London will also issue a note verbal, which will say the exact same thing, which will be then forwarded to the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which will then have this formal request for Vijay Mallya's deportation. Now, what's interesting and what will be known over the next few days is Mr. Mallya, of course, is well within his legal rights to challenge this in a British court. Remember, he's a permanent resident of the UK. Or subsequently, he can also move to the British Home Office, saying that since he's a permanent resident of the UK, he can move something called a leave to stay, which means till a court of law in India legally adjudicates on the matter of his revocation of passport, then he should be granted leave to stay in the UK.
I can now confirm that as of today, the Ministry has written to the High Commission of the United Kingdom in Delhi requesting the deportation of Shri Vijay Mallya so that his presence can be secured for investigations against him under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Our High Commission in the UK will also be issuing a similar note verbal to the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
Well, that's the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. But how simple is it going to be to bring Vijay Mallya back? Joining us now to take that discussion forward is senior lawyer Sanjay Hegde. Mr. Hegde, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. There is a non-bailable warrant out against Vijay Mallya. His passport stands revoked. And now the Ministry of External Affairs today saying that they have initiated the process of deportation by writing to the British High Commission in India. But be that as it may, how challenging will it really be to get Mallya back?
See, deportation or extradition is not a matter of right. You have to first make a request for extradition. Then the Foreign Office in the UK will consider it. After that is considered, then it would also have to be confirmed by the magistrate. That order of the magistrate is appealable. So I do not see any very easy road forward or a speedy road forward towards extradition, but that is the only road. You must also remember that we tried and we did not succeed in even the Navy War Leaks case in getting back Shankaran from the UK. When we find our only success in extradition so far seems to be Abu Salem, where also we had to give an undertaking to the Portuguese courts that the man would not be put to death. So each country has its own procedure for extradition. You have to qualify through all that procedure. You also have it also has to be a dual criminality, in as much as the events complained of must be a crime both in the country seeking extradition as well as the country granting it. And quite frankly, at somewhere in this process, I'm not very sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, since you were talking about dual criminality, Mr. Hegde, let me ask you this, because as far as the Indian government is concerned, this is a matter that involves Vijay Mallya not repaying 9,000 crore rupees to banks. Banks have moved the Supreme Court. Mallya trying to settle. That hasn't gone down too well at this point in time, and there's been no agreement. But when it comes to the UK, the charge of money laundering, which is perhaps what would stick with the UK authorities, has not been proven, and in an Indian court has not so far been proven by any investigative agency.
Proceedings in respect of that are on before the ED. That's why the ED issued him a summons. After the summons failed, they have sought a non-bailable warrant. At some point or the other, the proceedings will have to go forward. There will have to be a judicial determination that there was in fact money laundering, and appropriate orders would be passed. I suppose that both proceedings here, as in the ED, as well as the request for extradition, could for some time run parallelly, and by the time the matter comes to a final determination in the UK, proceedings before the ED might conclude.
Okay, so it seems like it is going to be a long-drawn legal battle, but there's again, this is conjecture at this point in time, but what if Vijay Mallya were to have citizenship of another country, a passport of another country? How complicated does that then make matters?
That would complicate matters, definitely. It is not as if the citizen of one country can't be extradited to a third country. But nevertheless, then if the country of which he claims citizenship now also comes to protect him, those rights would also have to be adjudicated upon before the magistrate and then before the appeals courts.
Okay, my final question to you before we let you go.
Difficult task near impossible.
It makes a difficult task near impossible. My final question to you, Mr. Hegde, before we let you go, what would be the legal strategy for Mallya now? The Indian government has played its hand, at least for now. What would be the legal recourse for Vijay Mallya now?
Well, as far as I can analyze, the attempt seems to be to drag out every stage of the proceedings, because after all, time is money. And the longer the amount of time that you get, probably you can put your financial affairs in order. There will be the banks who will be wanting to close their books, take a hit if necessary. At some stage down the line, I suppose, if possible, a one-time settlement or something of that kind might be attempted. But for the moment, the tactic seems to be the known defense tactic of delay.
All right, that is the tactic at this point in time, but appreciate you joining us, Sanjay Hegde. As you pointed out, it's not going to be easy. We may have initiated the deportation process, but it's not as if Vijay Mallya will be brought back anytime soon. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18.